Welcome to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales, where today's episode tackles one of the most critical and overlooked inflection points in growing a sales organization, knowing when to stop selling and start scaling. Hosts Kevin Lawson and Sean O'Shaughnessey, joined by special guest Steve Caton, unpack the transition from player coach to full-time sales leader and why making that leap before you feel ready might be the best decision you make. You'll hear how fractional sales roles can de-risk expansion into new markets while protecting your core revenue. If you've ever wondered how to build a more innovative, more scalable sales engine, this episode is packed with insights you can't afford to miss.
We're back, and hold on to your hats because we're about to hit some hard-hitting topics with speed and grace. We're joined again here by Steve Caton with Altezza Solutions. You can find him online at altezzasolutions.com. So I'm going to speak slowly there so you can write that down if you're not driving. If you are driving, come back and listen to this again so you can get to Steve's website quickly. But today, I want to talk about constraints. I want to talk about when people get nervous, whether you're a business owner or a sales leader. If you're facing challenges, whether they're fundamental, foundational to your business, to your industry, sometimes the feedback or the initial reaction can be to pull back from things like marketing and sales. Today is about getting comfortable with discomfort and thinking about how to move through that discomfort on a path to growth. Steve, great to have you back here. Sean, always good to hear your voice. Welcome back to Two Tall Guys Talking Sales for Trip Around the 15 Minutes, number 4.
Awesome. Great to be here, guys. Good to be the short guy with the two tall guys.
We welcome everybody to this podcast. And you can be tall, short, bald, anything. You can be an athlete and you're just a terrible salesperson. You're welcome here too. We want everybody to benefit from this. So thanks for joining us again. Sean, how are you?
Doing great. Thank you very much. So Steve, let's dig into that topic a little bit, right? Enough joking about size of people and all the rest. And bald? Come on now, guys. Come on. We probably should do a picture and show this.
We're going to dig into the idea of getting your mind wrapped around the differences between some selling models. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably a sales leader or company owner who is thinking through how they're going to grow, what bodies they're going to have in the seats, what roles they're going to fulfill. So we want to put a scenario in front of you all listeners to consider part-time versus full-time versus a player coach role, benefits, pros, cons to each.
Steve, what do you think about that? So do we have a play here? And let's just start with the one that is probably all three of us did sometime in our career, player coach. Right. So you've got a person, he's going to be the manager, but he's also going to be the player. He's got a quota, individual contributor quota, and he probably has 2 or 3, 5 salespeople on his team that he's trying to quote unquote coach. What do you think about that? And talk to us about that.
I've done that in my career, so I have some affinity for it, but I also know it's quite challenging. In a couple of software companies that I worked for, where I came in as initially a player, I was just a player, closing deals and building sales process on the fly. As we got some scale going, I was able to bring in more salespeople, and then I was coaching them, the player. Eventually, I was able to get to the place where I could just be the coach. I think what stands out to me about that is I don't consider myself a unicorn, but I feel like that's a really unusual mix of talents in one person. Typically, you're really good at maybe 1 or 2 of those things, but not all 3. I would say that I was a better coach than I was a player. Even though I was a good player, I was really good as a coach. So I was anxious to get to that point. Curious about what you guys think.
So in my world, I was a player coach several times in my career. It was the traditional thing of let's take the best salesperson and turn him into the manager, but let's not train him how to be a manager. So those were always challenging jobs. And I've always said that it's tough to do multiple things. It's much easier to do one thing well. So if you're a great salesperson, then be a great salesperson, be happy with that, and just focus on that for a career. And the company should allow you to focus on that and give you the tools to be successful. Once you become a manager, now you're trying to figure out, gee, on this deal that I'm working on, should I take it direct? In other words, should I take over and be the salesperson and maybe make a little bit more commission? Or should I try to get my team to grow and give them the experience of closing that? So when I first made that transition where I was no longer a player coach, I was just a coach, it was amazing. Two of my salespeople did 2 deals that were in the top 5 of the company that year. And that was the real reality to me. Like, it's time just to be a coach. Let other people be on stage. Kevin?
I like that approach, and my pad response, the one I'm willing to go on record in writing to say is sometimes you have to let people fail. You can't push them into failure, but you have to let them fail to learn. And the challenge with that is, as a leader, when they fail, you're also accountable to that failure. So you have to provide the safety net to catch them and relift them back up and talk through the process. The challenge for me, and Steve, I'd imagine this plays into your experience as well, is that when we don't have a deep bench, when we're working with a team of 1 or 2, a sales miss, a deal that slips out of the quarter or goes to a no decision or something big can really impact your entire company's year. So as a business owner, then we really have to consider where we're investing our time and talent and resources to win the deal or the next one.
Yeah, 100%. I think one of the things you said there was about the freedom to fail and learn, right? And I think this is one of the key things that I think makes a good sales leader or the coach is the ability to create enough safety that people feel like, okay, if I don't close this deal or it pushes or whatever, that I'm not gonna lose my job. And sometimes that happens. That's the reality of it. But for a good sales leader, they're creating an environment where people feel very safe talking to them about that and processing it and go, what can I learn from this? Pivoting to the business owner, as a business owner, if we are sitting in that sales leadership seat with our one or handful of salespeople, can we do that as a business owner? Can we actually create that environment of safety where the people feel the freedom to talk to us and process those things? Or are we creating an environment of fear where they feel like, man, if I fail, I'm out? And that's not we don't want to create that environment.
Right.
It's very interesting. And Steve, I've followed your company and I've known you for a couple of years now. When I first met you, you were the sales guy and you were the CEO and you're the jack of all trades, wear all the hats. Now that I know your company a little bit more, how it's progressed over time, you are much more of the CEO. And I think you've actually used the term rainmaker in some of the stuff that you put on LinkedIn. And for those that follow you on LinkedIn, and you all have sales people that work for you. What was that like on that transition from doing that and making that a real thing for you?
So moving from being the sales guy for Altezza to now the rainmaker.
Yeah.
First of all, I couldn't wait for it to happen because, like I said earlier, I really love sitting in that coach seat. I personally get a lot of fulfillment from helping other people win. And so I wanted to get there as soon as I could, but financial reality dictates when that happens. And so once we were at the point where I was ready to make that move, and by the way, I made the move before I could afford it, to be honest with you, because I knew the payoff would be big. It's like sometimes we have to have that investment mindset, most of the time, actually, especially in tough times, we think, let's pull back. But no, that's when we need to double down and say, let's take a little bit of a risk here. So I just said, I'm ready for that. Then I brought the salesperson in and basically they just shadowed me for, I don't know, 3-4 months or so, doing everything together so he could watch and listen and learn. And I let him do the same thing. And we were a tag team. Eventually I was able to let him start flying solo. Going back to the safety piece, it was always like, hey, we're always going to talk about the last 10% in terms of what went right and what didn't, because this is how you're going to get better. And it was a beautiful thing. Our company has exponentially grown since I made that decision coming up on 2 years ago.
It's interesting you say that too. You made the decision before you were financially ready, which also means is invest in your company, make it happen, and put all the chips on the table, right?
Yeah, I could quantify that if I could spend more time doing the rainmaking piece, that was going to help us grow. But if I was doing rainmaking and closing and babysitting those deals through the sales process, we weren't going to get where I wanted to go.
Right. And to hover over that, transitioning from the player coach to a part-time or full-time person in the seat, The real divorcing of the thinking from scarcity to abundance really comes into play here, because we can always grind. Think 10x is easier than 2x kind of thinking here. We can grind and sell one more deal, or to your point about making the leap, letting go of the vine of sorts, if you're thinking traction, when you make that decision to let go of the vine or to let others run untethered by constraints you have on you, you can really allow the business to blossom. I think the thing we're trying to get business owners and VPs of sales to think about right now is, how do we make the decision to hire additional resources for scale versus hiring another person to just do more of the same thing? Swim faster, swim harder versus strategic hire. How do you feather in that line of thought when you're coaching CEOs on how to get the most value out of Altezza?
Yeah, I think coming back to the principle of bullets before cannonballs, which is not my idea. That's a Jim Collins thing, right? From, I think it was Great by Choice is the book. He talks about that in starting with smaller sample sizes and getting all of the kind of proof of concept information that you need that tells you where to go next. That, for me, that's the key, right? I think sales is such an organic and beautiful learning opportunity. If we have patience with it, and we take the feedback we're getting from the salespeople and we sync that up with what we know about marketing and where our leads are coming from, and then the buyer journey, what we're learning there. If we're constantly evaluating and understanding what's going on there, we're going to know, where do we need to expand, right? Where do we need to go into a different market geographically? Do we need to change our offering a little bit? Do we need to double down on what we're doing? I just feel like there's no one answer to that question, but if you're not listening, if you don't have a strong feedback loop, then you're just going to be flying blind and you won't know. But if you have a feedback loop, then you can follow the lead.
Amazing. Absolutely. I'm high-fiving you verbally right now, because the feedback loop with a system and the controls, meaning a sales process with key performance indicator, that coupled with being intentional for gathering that feedback loop, informs your ability of where and how you should grow.
Yes.
Have a rep, has 200 accounts, 100 should be the maximum, divide. Have a rep who's succeeding in one geography and another one's being orphaned, add a rep. Just that kind of part-time, full-time versus player coach versus you as a owner, operator, leader jumping into, I'm using my air quotes now, save the day. That kind of thinking is woefully inept when you're trying to scale your business. Sean, where have you experienced this?
Yeah, so I'm going to build into one of those things that was said earlier, and that was going after that other market. And that other market could be another geographic territory that you're not covering, or maybe it's a different type of industry that you're going to go after, but you've had modest amount of success. One of the things I like about Altezza is when I have an industry that has a little bit of success and that's an adjacent market, I can put a fractional salesperson with a ton of experience onto that market. And I know that my other salespeople, they're going to take care of the day-to-day stuff, the stuff that's going to pay the bills. And now I can go after and start to market expansion. Steve, am I using your tools right? Am I thinking right there?
Yeah, that is a use case for the fractional sales model that I think is incredibly powerful. Let's not disrupt what's working. Let's bring in that kind of fractional asset to go test the new idea, the new market. And again, make sure that there's actually enough traction there to justify going all in. One great example of that, Sean, that we had is where a software company wanted to get into services, so professional services to support the software. Their existing sales team knows how to sell software, not services. So let's not try to reposition them. Let's go find a different sales asset, in this case, part-time, who can do proof of concept on the selling of services. And then if it works, then let's pour gas on it.
I love that idea of pouring gas on it. Once you know that there's something there, let's pour gas on it. I talk to people about this all the time. I'll talk to my clients about it all the time. Unfortunately, Steve, once again, we are out of time. It is time to go on to other things. It's time for our listeners to go to the next podcast, funny jokes or whatever they're going to go listen to. Maybe they'll listen to the news, but don't pay attention too much to the news, guys. Just go to something fun. Anyway, Steve, for those people that don't know you and just said, man, he's got a lot of good things to say, I'd love to be able to sit down and talk to him. How do they get a hold of you? how do they reach out to you? And tell us a little bit more about Altezza and where you guys are based.
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Steve Caton, Caton. Look me up there. Not a lot of people with my last name, so I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn. I love interacting there. Altezza Solutions is the web address, and we are 100% virtual. I live in Georgia, but we have people all over the country.
Fantastic. Steve, as always, thank you for being a guest on Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. We appreciate your insight and your wisdom. And for all of you out there in listener land, if you're looking to scale or grow intentionally, call Steve. Have an intellectually honest conversation about how you want to grow. Happy selling.
What an insightful episode of Two Tall Guys Talking Sales. Today, we explored the critical and often messy transition from sales operator to sales leader, with guest Steve Caton offering a first-hand look at how stepping out of the player-coach role unlocked exponential growth for his company. One of the most eye-opening parts of the conversation was using fractional sales talent to test new markets or offerings without disrupting what's already working. It's a powerful sales strategy that allows for low-risk experimentation with high potential payoff, giving you real-world data before you commit full-time resources. We also shared one major actionable takeaway. Reevaluate your team structure and decide whether you're scaling or just surviving. This is the kind of strategic clarity that separates companies stuck in reactive mode from those intentionally building for long-term revenue generation. Don't let this insight fade in the busyness of your day. Take 15 minutes after this episode to assess your team and your current growth constraints. If you found value in today's conversation, and we're confident you did, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. Sean and Kevin are just a click away if you need expert help with sales, sales management, or scaling your company. Their contact information is in the show notes and a quick sales assessment to help you evaluate whether your team is set up for success. Thanks for spending time with us today. Until next Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. Eastern Time, happy selling.